You know, with all the hype around the new Grand Theft Auto 5 game, I thought we would step into a time machine and travel back to the mythical time of 1998, when the first Grand Theft Auto game came out for the PlayStation 1 in the United States, and maybe see how the original game in the series actually stacks up to some of the more memorable Grand Theft Auto games like Vice City, San Andreas 4, 3, and, you know, the new one, which is just a living legend in the making. Well, to tell you the truth, Grand Theft Auto 1 wasn't that great of a game. For one thing, the graphics are really lacking. I mean, yes, the graphics are for an older system, for the PlayStation 1, but even for the PlayStation 1 by 1997 to 1998 standards, these graphics are unimpressive. I mean, these graphics could have honestly been done on the Super Nintendo. I am not over-exaggerating here. The only thing that makes this a next-gen game from, like, the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis is the fact that the environments are huge and there's a lot to do. It's not so much the actual graphical capacities of the game, but actually how much content is in the game that makes it next-gen. One thing this game has in common with the latest Colossus that is Grand Theft Auto 5 is there were a lot of characters in the original Grand Theft Auto, and you could actually play with the different characters and then raise your score with the different characters, but honestly, there's really no need to play as the different characters. They all look the same. Once you're in the gameplay, you barely even remember which character you picked. They're so similar. Oh, and also, where are the strong female characters in this game? Where are the protagonists from the LGBT and transgendered community? I demand character representation in this game from the female LGBT and transgendered community! Patriarchy! Patriarchy! The game is basically mission-based. You're running from payphone to payphone, completing various missions. Sometimes it's shoot this guy, sometimes it's steal this truck, sometimes there's a timer, sometimes there isn't. Every mission is given to you by these sped-up voices. They don't sound like actual people. They sound like a sped-up version of the teachers from Charlie Brown. The missions kind of keep you occupied, but I honestly hate doing the missions in this game because it's kind of hard to control your cars. The driving in this game isn't intuitive. It's obviously a top-down view, so you're constantly looking down at the city like you're some kind of giant. I mean, technically it's a 3D game, but it plays like a two-dimensional game. And the controls of the car are always going by what you're facing. So if you're driving super fast downworks, for example, like escaping some cops, and you turn left, your car is gonna go right because that's your car's right. It doesn't matter if it's your left. And the general default controls are themselves pretty confusing as well. I mean, you don't just run around by just using the directional buttons. You have to hold X to run forward, and then you turn around with the directional buttons. And the same thing with the car. X makes you go forward, and triangle makes you go back. Like, yeah, triangle. The upper button makes you go back, and the lower button makes you go forward. It's confusing, but again, it's something that you're just not used to. Well, if you play the game for like an hour or two, you'll get used to it. It's not a huge deal, but it's just not normal, and honestly, these controls are not good. They're not intuitive at all. And the game's not without its glitches too. Like, you try to enter a vehicle, but then your character just kind of spazzes out, and instead of just going right toward the door to enter the vehicle, he runs around or he gets stuck in between some other cars. It's just kind of annoying. The game just ultimately has lackluster controls, and the graphics in the game, while the game is big and there's a lot to do, are simply not impressive by late 90s PS1 standards. As it stands now, the main part of the game, its bread and butter, the actual mission gameplay, because of the poor control scheme and because of the glitches in the game, is pretty lackluster. If you deviate from the regular missions and just go out on a killing spree, that's when the game kind of starts to feel like Grand Theft Auto. You don't have to follow a linear path. You don't have to beat the clock, so you can kind of excuse the game's poor controls and some glitches because you're not in any hurry to do anything. Oh, you get stuck in the environment, you can't enter a car, fine, that's fine. There's no timer, you're just causing havoc and shooting the shit. When you're just free roaming and killing people with a bunch of different kinds of weapons, that's when the game feels like Grand Theft Auto. I mean, it's a cool free-roaming psychopath simulator, basically. It's a big game with a lot of content, a lot of weapons, a lot of different ways to kill your enemies, a lot of different cars to steal and drive around and to run people over. But it is not a well-polished game. I would say it's a pretty slow start to the Grand Theft Auto series. Groundbreaking like Grand Theft Auto 3, this is not in the slightest. But hey, it's the patriarch, so I guess we have to give it some respect. Grand Theft Auto 1 gets an official Stan Birdman rating of a 7 out of 10. I would give it like a 6 or a 6.5 honestly, but I think it does deserve that extra 0.5 because it is an innovative type of game. It's a game that gave birth to a legendary series. I think it deserves a little credit in that regard. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.